Joining us again this week at the ICA Annual Meeting and Expo, full of networking and education. As we move on to our keynote speaker, I'd like to thank Ariane as our sponsor and invite Carrie Stover from Ariane to the stage to introduce our keynote speaker.
Thank you, and I want to start by congratulating all the winners today and thanking all the people that volunteered for this event and throughout their year on the ICA. Ariane is a longtime sponsor of ICA and honored to present the keynote speaker today. It is with great pleasure that I introduce Dean Jacobs, a captivating speaker whose life journey has taken him from the heart of the American Midwest to the far reaches of the globe. Dean's story is one of inspiration, courage, and a deep-seated belief in the power of human connection. Born in Wahoo, Nebraska, and raised on a farm, Dean's upbringing installed in him a profound appreciation for life's simple pleasures. Armed with a degree in biology and his spirit hungry for adventure, Dean embarked on a remarkable odyssey that would traverse him across 50 countries and countless cultures. But perhaps even more impressive than his travel is Dean's mission: to share the experiences and his insights with others, challenging them to rethink their perspective and reignite their own dreams. Please join Ariane in welcoming Dean as he shares his extraordinary journey and encourages us all to embrace the stories we wish to write in our own lives.
That was awesome. Thank you. I need to set up to get connected here for just a second. Voila. It's really quiet in here. Here we go. Yeah. You ready? Yes. Good. I made a video for you. We're going to start. This song. Woo! Woo! Sometimes we got to get a new perspective so we continue to dream big, live tall, to do our part to make the world better! Woo-hoo! All right, where's it stop? Woo! Let's go. See that, dude? The best part at the last, right here. Yeah, you like that? I'll give that to you. Oh, you can clap to that. Don't worry, ICA, I'm not going to make you zip line upside down today. But I use it as a great metaphor. Mike, how are you, my friend? Yeah, I use it as a great metaphor to remind us that we got to sometimes step outside what's comfortable. I'm not here to fix anybody. I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. But I am here to invite you to have a little more peace in your heart and joy in your journey. And that doesn't come by accident. That comes from the intentional things, the decisions that we make along the way. So I can still remember the sound of the gravel as my bicycle wheels rolled on the country road. Who's ridden a bicycle on a gravel road in here? This is Iowa, so I imagine some hands. Yep. That bicycle, I was riding my bike from Fremont, Nebraska down to Arlington because, see, I didn't get to see my dad all the time. He was a truck driver. My mom never learned how to drive a car. So if I was going to go explore, it was going to be me on my bicycle doing that exploring, right? So I rode my bike 10 miles all by myself. Then he wasn't there, and I rode 10 miles all the way back. But every adventure, if it's really an adventure, it's going to make you a little nervous, right? So what was I worried about as I rode my bike from Fremont to Arlington and back? What do you think, Mr. President? Running off the road? No, all the cars were on the highway, so I wasn't worried about that. Flat tire was a concern of mine, but I wasn't worried about that. But like Iowa and Nebraska, what do a lot of the farms have on them to guard the farm? Dog, yeah, exactly, dog. And are they little dogs or are they big dogs? Yeah, they're big dogs. And are they on a chain? Never. That's why people live in the country, right? So I'd be riding my bike as quietly as I could. And at a certain point, you're committed, and there's no turning back, right? And I'm pedaling as fast as I can. Those big old dogs come chasing after me. Did they ever get me? No. And at 9 years old, I learned one of the most important lessons of my whole life, and that was this: that on the other side of that wall of fear, there's a whole world waiting to be explored. If I let that wall of fear stop me, it traps me into a small box. Are we supposed to live in little boxes? No. We're supposed to stretch and blow those babies up over and again by what I believe. We're here to dream big, we're here to live tall, and do our part to make the world better. Well, eventually I went into the work world, and I was doing the responsible things, and I was working for Pfizer Animal Health, and I was flying all over the United States, working with the largest dairy farms in America, 5,000 cows and larger. And I was living in Seattle, Washington at this point in time, and I was coming back from Idaho. And I've been skiing, and I was driving my little Ford Bronco 2. You remember those little Ford Bronco 2s? Little square boxes, right? I was driving my little Ford Bronco 2, and I was coming over the Cascade Mountains, and about 100 yards in front of me, this car loses control and hits a patch of ice. And we're all moving 70 miles an hour as we come over the Cascade Mountains. He loses control, goes into the snowbank on my left-hand side, and I'm thinking, oh, that poor guy, he's going to go in that snowbank and disappear. But unknown to me, underneath that bank of snow, there was a cement wall, right? And he hit that cement wall at 70 miles an hour, and it shot him airborne at the incoming traffic, which was who? It was me. It takes me longer to tell the story than it actually happened, right? And there's this car coming airborne right at me. I swerve, and boom, it hits me. I remember the first thing that came to my thoughts was like, oh, dang, he caught my bumper. So I put my foot on the brake, and I come to a stop, but I still hear a dragging noise coming down the mountain. And when I look out the passenger window on the right side, I see the back door of my Bronco going down the mountain. Then I'm thinking it's a little bit drafty in there. I'm like, oh. So I step out. I remember my eyes looked at the door latch, and then he glanced up at the rest of the Bronco, and I see where he'd taken the top of the Bronco off right behind the driver's seat. And my legs turned to jelly, because it occurred to me what almost happened. Was, instantly I wouldn't be here. If just a fraction of a second, I wouldn't have the privilege and the honor to be hanging out with y'all in Des Moines, Iowa today. But, the angel's watching over me, and my legs turned to jelly, and I fell down in the snow. And then I brushed up and brushed myself off, and State Patrol comes, writes up a report, hands it to me and says, you're good to go. Go where, man? I want my mom, right? Where am I supposed to go? Right? You're good to go. I'm like, well, you're good to go. And I didn't have anybody come get me at that point in time in Seattle, Washington, so I put my ski clothes back on because I've been skiing, and I picked up what was left of the back door of my Bronco, put it in, and then I drove home for 2 hours. The cars parted in front of me like the Red Sea. Like nobody wanted anything to do with Dean Jacobs as he was driving back. But it was on that drive home I started asking myself some questions like, how much stuff do you really need in order to be happy? Because I'm working really hard to have what? A lot of what? Stuff. And then I started asking myself that question, like, well, Dean Jacobs, what do you dream about? And what I dreamed about as a little boy in Fremont, Nebraska, was to go explore the world, not help increase Pfizer profits by 0.00001%. And there's nothing, I'm grateful for that time, but that wasn't the mission that life brought me here to do. And that was my wake-up call, and that was my dream. Now, how many of you dream ICA? How many daydream during ICA conferences? And you can raise your hands. It's okay. We're not the contendants, all right? All right? Right now. All right? Well, I had a dream, and then I forgot my dream. I got on that hamster wheel. You know what I'm talking about? I got on the hamster wheel, and we were going and going and going until I got that wake-up call. And I was on that drive home, I started asking myself those really important questions. Because if my expiration date was supposed to be up, that would have been a good time for God to bring me home. That there must be something else left for me here to do. So after a lot of soul searching, eventually what I decided to do was to honor the gift of the dream that God gave me and answer that calling. So I did the unthinkable. I quit my job and I sold my house to follow my dream. People thought I was what? Yeah, some people still do. right? But we're not here to follow other people's dreams. We're here to what? Follow our own dream. And one of the most important things I want to make sure that you're left with today, if you don't get anything else from me today, is that dreams are not for special people. They are for everyone, including ICA members and board members and GM managers and all of you. We never stop dreaming. Ever. The day we stop dreaming is that when we've given up to the chaos, and we weren't brought here just to go through the motions of life. I don't believe we're brought here to go through just the motions of life. I really believe that we're brought here to make the world better in our own unique way and special gifts that life has given us along the way. So I quit my job and I sold my house to follow this trip, to take a trip around the world. The first trip would last for 2 years because I refused to get trapped in what? That box, that one. And when understand what I'm saying? All right, we're going to do box training. Everybody show me your boxes. I can see you. By the way, I went through this whole convention center and touched every chair before you came in here. So I can see all of you. Show me your boxes. Come on. There we go. Good. All right, good. Box training. We got to stretch and blow the... I see you. There you go. We got to stretch and blow these up. Now you can put your hands down. Just want to make sure that you were still moving in here, okay? Right? It's to stretch and blow them up by dreaming big, by living tall to make the world better. We got to do our part to constantly stretch and blow those boxes up. Otherwise, you're going to get trapped and we're just going to be going through the motions of life. So to help me understand some of the challenges that you have at ICA, I zoomed with some of your members to get some insight on the challenges. So I just want a special thank you to Mike Becker. Where are you, Mike? I just saw you. Yeah, bye. Congratulations on your award. From East Buchanan, Tammy Wheeler. Well, there you are, Tammy. Farmers Mutual, did I get that right? Mike said if I said Farmers Mutual, it'd be about 50% of the whole community here. It's like that. They have Farmers Mutual in your names. And then, of course, my friend Levi, there you are, Levi Babby of Huxcom, whom I have a long relationship with at Huxcom. If you know Gary Clark, anybody know Gary Clark in here? Oh, yeah. He's married my cousin. So I have a long history with telecommunications in the state of Iowa. And just so I'm not completely naive to your business, my brother was an auditor for co-op telephone companies across the state of Nebraska and Alaska. So I've been around this conversation almost most of my life. I never went into the deep end of the pool, but at least I know the conversations. And in my long history with Huxley, it's an honor to be hanging out with you guys again. And thank you for the engagement that we work together to support the community schools there so that they can continue to dream big and live tall, make the world better. As co-ops, I know that some of you had to give back to the community, and that's how we did that in Huxley. It was a lot of fun. I also want to acknowledge all of you for just being here today. You could be, well, I don't know if you could be somewhere else, but most of it, we could be doing something else. And today got together here as a community to enrich ourselves, to challenge ourselves to grow. And this is an opportunity for us to celebrate the differences, how you're making a difference in the state of Iowa. All right, so we're here to constantly, and I believe, to stretch and blow this baby up over and over again. So this is for you, ICA. Yeah, you like this, don't you? Yeah, exactly. Stretch that box over and over again so we just are not just going through the motions. So I quit my job and I sold my house to follow my first dream. That first dream was a trip around the world that lasted for 2 years. I've now gone through 58 countries. When, by the way, as I traveled around the world, I would eat kangaroo, ostrich, antelope, zebra, camel, scorpion on a stick, guinea pig. Every time I go in the Amazon rainforest, they feed me white worms the size of my thumb. Probably my favorite food in South America is guinea pig. It all tastes like what? Chicken. It all tastes like chicken. This is the first point. If you don't try it at least once, I don't care whether you like it or not, but if you don't try it at least once again, we allow ourselves to get trapped in the what? Box. To get comfortable. The growth is outside the box. We want to have a safe place to live and engage with our communities. But if we're going to grow into the best version of ourselves, it has to be intentional, where we step out of what's familiar and into the new and exploration of the world. So my first trip around the world lasted for 2 years. I went through 28 countries. I got to see the outback of Australia. I went to the base camp of Mount Everest. I went to the Middle East, where I got to see the Western Wall in the heart of Jerusalem. From there, I went from the top of Africa to the bottom. I got to see amazing animals like zebras. Got to see a couple sea lions on the coast of Namibia. Yeah, more than a couple. You got it? All right? That's just a few images from that. And then in 2004, I went again. And I went through Central and South America, where I got to see exploding volcanoes in Guatemala. I got to see, I actually went for a boat ride through the Panama Canal for a whole day. And then I worked my way all the way down to the Galapagos Islands, where I got to go swimming with these guys. Who wants to swim with dolphins? When I ask elementary kids who wants to swim with dolphins, do you know how they respond to that? Yeah! Right? So I'm just challenging you. You just want to make sure that we're not like giving, see that? How it's really sneaky. How the burdens of life want to reinforce the walls to keep us from being passionate about it. So I'm here to challenge that just a little bit, okay? By the way, I'm always teaching the kids when I do a lot of work at the Omaha Reservation these days in Nebraska. I'm always teaching them, the way I know you're committed to making the world better, you give me a thumbs up. So when I see you in the hallway, what are you going to give me? Thumbs up. When I see you in the cafeteria, what are you going to give me? Thumbs up. So they'll be walking down. You know how they're all lined up in the schools? They'll be being really quiet, talking with her, and then I'll hear whispers. Oh, here he comes, here he comes. 2 thumbs up. So I'm going to be throwing out some things at you today. I'm going to ask you if you understand what I'm saying. Just give me a thumbs up, so that way I know that you're actually with me. Give me a thumbs up if you understand what I'm putting down there. Okay, thank you, ICA. Appreciate that. And, of course, I got to hang out with one of my favorite birds, the blue-footed boobies, because who doesn't like to hang out with blue-footed boobies in the Galapagos? It's just fun to say. You should hear the giggles when I say that in elementary school, right? Then I took another trip. This was in 2007. This one lasted for 10 months. I went to explore the Nile River of Africa. I went to the beginning of the Blue Nile in Ethiopia and Lake Tana. Then I went to Lake Victoria in Uganda to see where the White Nile begins its amazing journey. From there, I followed the Nile, and where I saw the Niles come together in Khartoum, Sudan. And then I followed all the way up to here, to Egypt, and to where it dumps into the Mediterranean Sea in Alexandria, Egypt. When I got done with that part of the trip, because it wasn't done at that point, when I got done with that, then I went up to Northern Europe, up to Denmark, and then over to Finland, and I got on the Trans-Siberian Railroad. And I took the railroad across Russia. Well, not just, by the way, when I say Trans-Siberian Railroad, just to put it in context, I didn't spend the whole 2 months on the train. I was like getting off and on. That makes sense? Right? And then, good, thank you. Oh, I got that thumb. Thank you. Reinforcement. And then I spent some time in Mongolia, and then I spent some time in China, where I got to hang out with these guys. Who wants to hang out with these guys? Yeah, give me a thumbs up. You want to hang out with the panda bears? Yep, good, nice. Who wouldn't want to hang out, especially baby pandas, right? And then in 2009, as a biologist from Wayne State College in Wayne, Nebraska, one of the highlights of my life as a biologist was I got to live with mountain gorillas for 7.5 months in Rwanda. Do you remember the movie Gorillas in the Mist? That movie? Well, I worked for those scientists for 7.5 months in Rwanda, and I got to learn about their struggle of survival and what they're doing to try to make sure that they still have a place to live. And that taught me a lot about nature. And then in 2011, 2012, I went back to South America because I got sick on that trip when I went through Central America. I went back to finish what I had started, and I spent 6 months looking at the Amazon River and the Amazon rainforest. So before it was ever a website or anything like that, there was this amazing place in South America called the Amazon. Extraordinary biodiversity. I got to know not only the nature, but I also got to know some of the indigenous people who taught me some important lessons I'm going to share with you today. The Achuar people. And I got to hang out with some other critters in the Amazon too that taught me some important lessons too. They left a few calling cards on me. You understand? Yeah, you know what I did? You brush it off. Because if you're going to be engaged with life, if you're going to be willing to step outside the box, on occasion you're going to have a pile of poo. Right? If you're not getting a pile of poo on occasion, you're playing safe, and you're not putting yourself out there. You're not I know. That's the nicest way I can say it, right? All right? If you're not out there challenging yourself to grow a little bit, you're missing out on these opportunities. So I spent 6 months looking at the Amazon. And from there, I came back, and I did this yellow line to the middle of the United States that represents a river. Anybody want to guess what river that was? The Mississippi, exactly, where I actually got to spend some time in your great state of Iowa. And by the way, just so you know, I'm from Nebraska, so thanks for letting me in today. because I know all that rivalry. And I do own a little bit of farmland over by Red Oak that I inherited. So I'm actually kind of half Iowan anymore, right? I would clap to that if I was you. Like, you'll let me in, thank you. Yeah, go Iowa. All right, so I canoed the Mississippi from Lake Itasca all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico in sections. I had 2 months to look at the Mississippi River. I did it in pieces, because if you're going to canoe the Mississippi River, you'd have to paddle every day for 3 months. I did meet people on the Mississippi River canoeing it from beginning to end every day, but I didn't have that kind of time. So I spent 2 months actually doing that. This is the whole Mississippi River in this photo. That's the whole thing at that point up in Minnesota. Crystal clear water, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Got to see amazing critters. Anybody know what that is? Otter, exactly, otter, and lots of eagles, which was a big, big, big blessing. And then since 2014 and to now, there's been many, many trips into the Amazon rainforest and into Uganda, Africa. So you wouldn't be able to see the map anymore with all the number of lines. I've been leading groups into the Amazon and groups into Africa for the last few years. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, on my daily budget, because first thing people think, oh, this dude has a lot of what? Money, right? My daily budget, as I traveled for the first 2 years, was $10 to $15 a day. $10 to $15 a day. Now, could I live in Iowa on that? No, or Nebraska or Iowa. But I had sold my house, and I made a profit from the sale of that house. And I made enough money where I could travel for 2 years if I was going to travel on a tiny budget. The other thing I knew, ICA, is that a tiny budget would put me in contact with the ordinary, everyday people. I could have stayed in Iowa and Nebraska and the whole Midwest or the United States and never ran out of beautiful things to see. But it's a chance to sit down, break bread, have a cup of tea with someone who has different color skin, speaks a different language than what you do. That gives you one of the greatest chances to learn about the world and also to learn about who? Yourself, when you step out of the box of what's familiar. Give me a thumbs up if you understand what I'm putting down there. Okay, good. Awesome. So I'm here to challenge you to step out of that comfort zone so you continue to what? To dream big and live tall and make the world better, or make ICA better, make Iowa better. So today my talk for you is called 7 Wonders, 7 Lessons. I went looking for the 7 wonders of the world, and I came back with 7 lessons about humanity. Reasons to give us hope about the future versus to slip into cynicism and resignation. I know it's hard. I know it's challenging. They told me, Mike and Michelle and Levi told me about the challenges with all the bureaucracy and the challenges of maintaining or keeping your good help along the way. And then acronym training or something like that, with all the different organizations that you all have to navigate. It's not going to go away. The only thing that we have control over that dynamic is the attitude that we bring to it. Because those challenges are always going to be there. But who you are, you get to decide who that is as you face that. Give me a thumbs up if you understand what I'm putting down on that, because that's really important. We can't change the chaos. We can't change the confusion, but we can definitely nurture who we want to be. So I went seeking 7 wonders, and I came back with 7 lessons about humanity. Reasons to give us hope for the future versus to slip into cynicism and resignation. Now, most of how we learn about the world comes from the what? How do we learn about the world? Comes from what? Experience. But not most of them. Most of us don't get to go into the world. How do we learn about what's going on in Russia right now? In the news. And I call that the negative narrative. Because it poisons our mindset and leaves us feeling what? Afraid. I'm not saying bad things don't happen, but what about all the amazing, kind, good people that are still in Russia that don't want the war? But all we get is fed as a certain negative narrative that poisons our mindset and activates not the better named angels of us, who we can be. So I'm here to remind you that we do not let the world define who we're going to be. ICA doesn't let the world define who they're going to be. You choose. And your principles and the values and how you show up day in and day out and how you take care of your customers. All right. Wonder number 1. The pyramids of Egypt. The oldest tourist trap in the entire world. It's like 4,000 years old. I went there. Fascinating place. Of course, I'm going to go hang out with the Sphinx and check out that. Who's been to Egypt? I'm just curious anyway. Anybody want to go see the pyramids? Yeah, that's a good dream. Remember, dreams aren't for special people. They're for everybody. Yep. 4,000 years old, I want and hang out with the Sphinx. Of course, as an explorer, I just don't want to hang out around the edge of the pyramids. What do I want to do? Go inside. Exactly. So down inside I went. Down, down, down. I'm crawling into the heart of this pyramid. Sweat's rolling down the sides of my cheeks because it's like 110 degrees out. It's in the deserts of Egypt, right? Sweat's rolling down the sides of my cheeks. Eventually comes to a stone room about the size of your boardroom, I would imagine, or classroom. In the corner of that room, there was a stone box the size of a couch. I walked over this stone box. I stepped inside. And I laid down in the very spot where they laid the Pharaoh 4,000 years ago. I never said I was normal. That wasn't right, Julie? Right. But when you can go touch something, that's 4,000 years old, you know what happens? It changes how you relate to the world forever. It becomes a part of you, and you become a part of it. And then we have a doomed relationship to the world. I will fail my mission today if I don't at least wave a little oxygen on your flames and have you have a little more desire to go explore the world. Give me a thumbs up if you understand what I'm putting down there. I want you to be curious about the world. Don't let the world news define who you're going to be in the face of all that. And so my fascination with pyramids in that part of the world took me into another part of the world that has more Egyptian pyramids than what Egypt does. So I went into the heart of Sudan, in northern Sudan now. There's northern Sudan, southern Sudan. I was in northern Sudan following the Nile River for about 3 weeks. To get access to some of these places, you didn't have a Jeep, so you just found the nearest camel to take a ride. And eventually it would take me to places like this. Well, that's how I got there. It'd take me to places like this. I'd be the only guy there, walking around. You know, and in Egypt, there would be millions of tourists. This, I had the whole place to myself. And as I was walking around this place, there was a song going through my head. Anybody want to guess the song going through my head? Walk like an Egyptian. That always comes up, right? Nope. There's really no words to it, but I can hum it. You want me to hum it? Well, you don't have any choice, right? This is a song that was walking through my head as I was walking around these ancient pyramids. The song went like this. Dun, 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 dun. What is it? Indiana Jones. And that's as close to Indiana Jones as I'm ever going to get. This country boy from Nebraska, so I wasn't going to miss a chance like this. So I'm walking around having my Indiana Jones moment for just a second. Sudan was an amazing place. And of course, what was my daily budget as I traveled? 10 to 15 bucks a day. So am I traveling first class? No. This is my bus for 2 days. As I went through Sudan. Air conditioned? No. Well, sometimes I was air conditioned because sometimes I would actually climb on top of the bus. I would, just to get some air movement. But then you got covered with sand and dust too. But it was just all part of the adventure. Outside the what? Box, right? But this was an important lesson. Twice, when I was in Sudan, getting ready to get on a bus, I get ready to pay my bus fare to the person that was taking the money. And this guy taps me on the shoulder and he goes behind me and he goes, I already paid for you. Like, okay, why? And this big grin would come on their face and he goes, well, you're a guest in our country. It's part of our responsibility is to watch over you while you were here. Now, does that ever make the news? No. And that happened to me twice. And it taught me a lot about Sudan. And it actually taught me my first lesson that I want to share with you today. And that is the lesson of what? Of generosity. Where can we give to life versus just be taking away from it? Where can we? I'm not just talking about money either, by you understand what I'm saying? I'm talking about the generosity of the human spirit. I'm giving you everything I got today. Can you get that? I'm giving you everything I have for this little window of time that we get to be together. And I hope you feel that from me, because I'm going to leave it all on the stage or in this room, so that way we get this little precious hour to be together. I'm going to make it count, right? Good. All right, so number one, generosity. Where does generosity show up in your life? ICA. And where could it show up just a little more? And how would that change the quality of your organization that you work for? Not just donations, but like volunteer time. And you all do some amazing things anyway, but Can we also level that up along the way? Spend a little less time on social media maybe, and a little more time given along the way? Just a question. No judgment in that. Just awareness to stretch and blow up that box. Okay, wonder number 2. Wonder number 2, Victoria Falls. It's one of the largest waterfalls in the entire world. To go from one end of this waterfall to the other is a mile. It's a mile wide. Isn't that amazing? And I went there and I spent 4 days because I was mesmerized by this waterfall, mesmerized by it. And I would sit there and sometimes I would sit on the ground to have a little quiet moment. Who needs quiet moments sometimes? Yeah, me too. I need more, right? And I'd be sitting on the ground and I would put my hand on the ground and I could actually feel, this is true, I could feel the earth shake. There was so much power of that water going over the lip of that waterfall. Magnificent. Now, it's impossible to understand this waterfall while you're standing on the ground, so I took a jump up to get a little bit better view. That's me on the back, hanging on for dear life. You know, people think I'm brave because I've interviewed rebel generals in the Congo and you know, things I've done, you know. But the bravest thing I've ever done, because I'm not that brave, but the bravest thing I ever did do was the day I called up Pfizer and said I was leaving. Because then, you know, everything I knew my life, to what I thought it was, just went spinning off without me. And you know what happened, ICA? I was left with a blank canvas for me to become the author of my life versus the expectations that I had taken on from other people who loved me but didn't really understand who I was meant to be. Does that make sense? So it took a lot of courage to do that. A lot more than it did to get on this microflight and fly over the top of Victoria Falls, that's for sure. Now you can see that channel. Can you see where it comes together in the channel right below there? You can go whitewater rafting on the Zambezi. And I did. I wasn't going to miss a chance to whitewater raft. Even though I don't know how to swim very well. I don't. But I refuse to get trapped in that thing, right? Now, they had a lot of rules on this rafting trip, ICA. Lots of rules. But there was number one rule that they really wanted to make sure you were clear about. What do you think the number one rule might have been as is rafting the Zambezi? Stay in a boat. I forgot to tell you, there was 21 rapids, class 3 to class 5. Class 5 rapid is the size of a house. 3 times we completely flip upside down and smash into the Zambezi River. So you're not going to stay in the boat. Any other guesses? Number one rule? Don't take your life jacket off, especially some guy that doesn't swim, right? Good idea. One more, any guesses? Have fun. Yes, who said that? Oh, good. Well, that's my number one rule, right? Because life is short, right? Yeah, I know. But that wasn't even the number one rule. Number one rule was this, ICA. As soon as you get thrown out of the raft, get back in as soon as you can. Because the water's filled with crocodiles. True. And never guess who the first person to get thrown out of the raft was. Mr. I don't know how to swim. And I'm doing my best imitation of swim. I get to the edge of that raft, and they pull me up on the raft, and I'm like, and the dude in the back, he's laughing. The guy, he's laughing. He goes, Dean, you don't have to worry about these crocodiles right here. These crocodiles, they're vegetarian. A theory I was not willing to test. But it taught me another lesson, because there's an arm that came down out of that raft to pull me out of the water. And it taught me the lesson of what? Gratitude. Grateful for the help that we get along the way to help us move from point A to point B. I like to say gratitude is the fuel to help us feel good. Why not be intentional about feeling good versus you hoping it randomly falls from the sky? So I have a little practice every day where I reflect on what I'm grateful for. So my question for you, ICA, is where does gratitude show up in your life now? And where could it show up just a little more? And if it did show up a little more, what difference would it make? Okay? All right. Next lesson. Next wonder. Here we go. Wonder number 3. The stone churches of Ethiopia. By the way, 7 wonders, 7 lessons. These are my 7 wonders. Some of them show up on everybody's list. These are my ones that I just, experience along the way, moving through 58 countries in 8 years of my life with a backpack, a notebook, and a pen. Not on somebody else's agenda, but on my own a little bit along the way. By the way, sometimes people call me in Iowa a reincarnated Al Bell. Anybody ever hear Al Bell? Let's see, raise your hand if you ever heard Al Bell, so I know. All right, that's where all the older people are. Okay, good. But I would have loved to meet that guy. Okay, tangent, squirrel. Okay. Wonder number 3, the stone churches of Ethiopia. These are amazing. I went to Ethiopia to go see these stone churches, but I also went there for a couple other reasons too. I went there to see the beginning of the Blue Nile, because there are 2 Nile rivers. There's the White Nile, there's the Blue Nile, until they come together in Khartoum, Sudan, to become the Nile. But until then, there's 2 Niles. And most of the water that ends up in Egypt comes from out of the Blue Nile. The White Nile, a lot of it evaporates up in South Sudan. So I went to go see the Blue Nile. I spent a whole day, or actually 2 days, floating on this in a ship. We spent a night on the edge of the Lake Tana there, up there in Ethiopia. I'll never forget this room. Oh, by the way, this room cost me $2 for the night. $2. But this is not really why I remember this room so much. The real reason I remember this room so much, because at 3 o'clock in the morning, when my head was on this pillow, a rat ran across the top of my head. Now, did I like that? No. But would I let that stop me from following my dreams? Never. You're going to have moments that you're uncomfortable when you step outside the box. You have to anticipate that. But being comfortable, we get really what? Bored. And boredom kills us. People are checked out on social media mostly because they're bored and they stop being engaged. We have to re-engage because the stakes are high. Okay? So I went to Ethiopia to see these stone churches. These are amazing. If you never knew about these, I hope this inspires you to become curious to go see them for yourself one day. They're 800 years old. 800 years ago, did they have jackhammers? No. That means they're all like carved by hand, straight into the ground. And my favorite one was called St. George. St. George. It was carved in the shape of a cross that went straight down into this rock face. Listen to this. Check this out. Boom. Isn't that amazing? 800 years old. By the way, it's not a museum. It's not a museum. It's a real place. In Ethiopia, a church where they go pray, and they make pilgrimages there. And it's like there's like a secret passageway to get down into there, to explore there. So I did some exploring while I was down there to check it out. Really, really amazing. Now, another reason I went to Ethiopia was Nebraska has the largest Sudanese refugee population in the United States. And I think there's also a big Sudanese refugee population in Iowa. Is that true? I think there is. And the ones I got to know, I became really curious about. Remember the Lost Boys thing? The Lost Boys stories? There was a book, Lost Boys, and there was a movie about it and that kind of stuff. Well, that's about the time I went there because I became really curious about their journey. How'd they get from Sudan all the way to Nebraska to the Midwest? So I went to the refugee camps that they spent some time as they passed through there. This was a scene right outside the door of my hostel one night when the sun was going down. Beautiful scene. Now I watched those people on this scene, and before they would go in the water, they would pick up a rock and they would throw it into the shallows of the water. Why do you think they were throwing rocks into the shallows? Exactly right, to scare the crocodiles away. 2 weeks before I got in there, someone was bathing and they got taken away by a crocodile. So another reason to be grateful, we can turn on the shower head and we don't got crocodiles that come out of our shower head, right? Perspective is really powerful along the way. So I was writing a story for the Fremont Tribune. I used to write newspaper columns, and every now and then I write a story. I was writing stories for the Fremont Tribune, and I went and found out that they were actually returning people back from the refugee camps after 20 years. They were moving them back to South Sudan. That they were shutting down the UN operation. I thought that'd be cool. I'd like to get some photos of them loading people on planes to add to my stories because I was trying to help us understand how these people got from where they are to where they are now. So I went and stood outside the UN office door for about 4 hours, and eventually this guy pops out named Roonan Dyer and goes, I introduced myself. I go, I'm Dean Jacobs with the Fremont Tribune, not the New York Times, right? Could I take photos of you loading people on planes? And they said, yeah, we'll call you tomorrow. I need to ask the team, he said. So he calls me the next day, and he goes, this Dean Jacobs? I go, yeah. He goes, this is Roonan Dyer with the United Nations. He was from Denmark. And the answer is, yes, you can come take photos of us loading people on planes, but we have a question for you. Would you like to go with us? Now, if I would have asked the bureaucracy of the UN about going on plane rides into South Sudan, would that ever happen? You guys, you work with bureaucracy, right? Would that ever happen? Never. But I found the right people, the right time, because I was trusting my heart to follow my dreams and put me right in the right spot where the God, the divine, wanted me to be. And for 2 days, I flew with this United Nations team as they were returning refugees back to South Sudan. And I'll never forget it because it changed my life. Because both days as that plane would land into South Sudan, both days, the whole plane would start to sing and dance. Because they were so happy about going home after living in tents and stuff for 20 years. And then I saw faces like this that taught me a really important lesson, another lesson about life. And then I call this the lesson of dignity, knowing that you have value no matter what else is going on around you. That we don't let the bad things in life define who we're going to be and how we're going to show up. Give me a thumbs up if you understand what I'm putting down there, ICA, because that's an important one. Okay? Yep. So where does dignity show up in our life now? And where could we bring a little more dignity into the conversation, into our communication, into ICA, right? So we grow into the best version of ourselves. Next wonder. Next wonder is one of my favorites. Well, they're all my favorites, but this one's extra special because as a biologist, to go hang out with mountain gorillas is amazing. Wonder number 4, the mountain gorillas of Rwanda. Got to work with the scientists that studied them for 7.5 months. I was a field correspondent, which means I would go into the field about 4 times a week for multiple hours with my camera and my notebook and my backpack, and I got paid to do it, which is really a bonus because people pay thousands of dollars to go do it. And I got paid thousands of dollars to live with them. And they taught me some important lessons. Like this. This is what I look like until I get coffee in the morning. Anybody relate? Yeah. But you give me a little coffee, I start to perk up a little bit. I threw in this video when I got to hang out with mountain gorillas. It might be like a board meeting for, a telephone company. I'm not sure, but we'll see. ICA or telecom. Did I say that right? Or teleco or co-op, all you in here, okay? This is what that means. So I got to hang out with mountain gorillas. You'll see on top a little character. Watch, right here. That's a board meeting, right? And then this little guy up front, you'll see in a moment, he's going to show us how tough he is. Right here. Cute, huh? Now, people ask me often, hey, Dean Jacobs, how close did you get to the gorillas? I was as close to me to this podium as this was going on. Now, he's mad. He's not mad at me. He was mad at somebody behind me. And the reason why I know that's because he's puffing up his lips. That's how they display to show they're not happy. And then his friends decide to climb this bamboo forest behind him. This turns out not to be such a great idea. Another board meeting. Good life. It's a good life. I brought a little Nebraska to the jungle. The good life kind of stuff. Now, hanging out with the gorillas taught me some important lessons. It's such a privilege. I tell you what, when you look into the eyes of a 400-pound silverback gorilla, and you're almost within arm's reach, and they can break you in two with one hand if they wanted to, and they just look at me and they go, oh, poor guy, he's only got hair on top of his head. Kind of thing. It really humbles you. Really humbles you. And this one time, there was one group I would go back to several times, and I started to make connections with the gorillas. And there was this young one, and the scientist goes, he really knows you. And I go, yeah, I know, it's kind of fun. And I'm taking pictures of the gorillas, and you're supposed to stay 15 feet away from the gorillas so you don't get them a disease. Make sense? But do the gorillas follow the rules? Gorillas go where they want to go. Sometimes the young ones would come up and they would hit me because they wanted me to be their friend. They said, don't become their best friend because they'll remember you one day, and they'll come, when they're full grown, they'll come pull you through the forest like a rag doll. And that would not be so good for Dean Jacobs, right? So I'm taking pictures of these, and all of a sudden this baby gorilla is right below my left-hand shoulder. And I got two cameras because I got a zoom and I have a wide angle here, and I'm, ignoring them because I'm supposed to ignore the gorillas that are following me around a little bit. And I got my zoom, and that baby gorilla is right below where this is, and he's doing this. Boom. He's doing this. Now, bring me on camera, would you? Cut away. Good. So he's doing this. He's right below my camera, and he's doing this. What's he looking at? His what? His reflection. He's looking at his reflection. You see, even gorillas have something. You can put the better one, looking one there. Back. Even gorillas have this thing. It taught me another lesson about life called what? Curiosity. What's outside the what? Box. Even gorillas are curious about what's on the other side of those struggles and those fears that keep us playing small and not shining to our best possibility. So where does curiosity show up in our life, ICA? And where could it show up a little bit more? Next wonder, Taj Mahal. Wonder number 5. The queen said to the king, build me a building that's worthy the beauty I am to bury me when I die. So he had this built for her, this amazing building in India. I walked around there. You'll notice I don't have anything on my feet because it's sacred ground. They ask you not to wear shoes. Fine enough. And also while I was in India, I was teaching English to Tibetan refugees. And I got to learn about their struggle of survival there in McLeod Ganj, India, and how they got from China, escaped the government of China to get into the United States so they could continue to practice their own form of religion along the way. And while I was there, I had the privilege to also spend some time with this guy. And that was amazing. If you would ask this country boy from Nebraska, you're going to go hang out with the Dalai Lama. When I was a biology student at Wayne State College, that would never even fall into my realm of possibility. But because I keep throwing myself outside the box, things show up that are beyond my imagination sometimes. Heading out, spending time with him, it taught me another lesson about humanity. And this lesson was humility. Because he had nothing but a genuine gratitude and grace to him. Even though the Chinese government is doing everything they can to repress the Buddhist expression of life in Lhasa, he had nothing but grace. Make sense? So where does humility show up in our life now? And I don't know about y'all, ICA, but I think we need a little more humility in our culture these days. For me, humility is the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know, but also how far I've come. I'm not going to discount all the miles I've run, but every time I learn something, I go, oh, there's more to learn. We'll never stop learning. Wonder number 6, the Marble Mountain of Vietnam. I went to Vietnam because once upon a time we had a war there, so I'm going to go learn about the war. First thing I learned about the war in Vietnam, they don't call it the Vietnam War, they call it the American War, because from their perspective, it was the United States who came there. Fair enough. I can honor that. I went into the rice fields. I went to go see their leader. Do you remember the leader of Vietnam during the Vietnam War? It was who? Ho Chi Minh. And you can still go see him. He's in a glass coffin in this mausoleum. So, of course, I'm super curious. I'm not going to miss my chance. He looks like a miniature Colonel Sanders. He does. He has a white suit on. He has a little white goatee. I don't know. He might have been wax. I don't know. But that's who they got there. And the dude's there, the guy on my left, well, the guy on my right, he thought I was funny. The other guy just thought I was weird. And you're going to get that sometimes. Now, I used to do a lot of mountain climbing in Seattle, Washington, but there was a mountain in Vietnam I didn't want to climb to the top of it I wanted to go into the heart of this mountain. They had hollowed out this mountain called Marble Mountain, and it looked like this. And that's not a light, that is sunshine coming through. And it was Chinese New Year, so they were lighting incense. And I see this scene, and in photography we call this God light. Like, oh, this is amazing. So I'm taking pictures of that. And eventually you have to set the camera down, so that doesn't separate you from the experience. So I'm watching this, and in this shaft of light, I see something that looks like a dandelion seed slowly coming down in this shaft of light. It was about the size of a $50. I set my camera down, I walked over, and I'm standing in this shaft of light. I hold out my hand, and that dandelion seed lands right in the palm of my hand. Now, I would be lying to you, ICA, if I don't tell you that I don't have doubts on my journeys, that there are better writers, there's better photographers, there's better travelers, except that voice in your head. But if I keep staying true to my heart, I get little reminders from above that this is exactly where it's supposed to be. So as this was landing in my hand, there was a little girl, her standing next to me, her eyes go, whoa, who's this dude that holds out his hand and seeds fall from the heavens? But for me, the message was this: there's nowhere else you're supposed to be except right here, right then, right now. And part of the doubts start to fall away, and there I live with that amazing presence. That taught me a lesson. Taught me a lesson called what? Respect. It's not an accident that I'm here today. It's not an accident that you're here today. Respect for the journey of life. So what are we going to do to make it count? We get one window. What are we going to do to make it count? And run with it as best that we can. And where does respect show up in your journey? ICA, a little more respect for the journey. Appreciation for the journey, respect. Not an accident we're here, so let's make it count. Wonder number 7, the Trans-Siberian Railroad, Northern Europe. I love this. That's the Church of Spilled Blood in St. Petersburg. Oh, by the way, I know there's a war going on in Russia. This is long before the war. I also want to challenge you to let you know that there are still really good people there in Russia that are not getting to voice their opinions because it's not very safe. All right? So I want to make sure I'm going to honor, today part of my talk is to honor those who don't have a voice anymore and that they fear for their life. This is in Moscow. What do they call this? What do they call it? No, well, I call it Legoland on steroids. is what I call it. I'll have to look it up later. It's in Moscow. All right, so I get on this train in St. Petersburg, and I take it all the way across Russia and outside, and I see windows of Siberia. I was there in the wintertime, which is not really the best time to do the Trans-Siberian Railroad. Outside is minus 40 degrees. Super cold. Have songs of Dr. Zhivago, if you dating myself there a little bit, going through my head. Seeing these beautiful scenes. Of course, I don't have first class. I don't have second class. I have what? Third class, because I'm traveling on a small budget. This was my compartment where I was traveling. That old woman was at the base of my feet. Are there any doors that separate us? Nope. And I show her photos of Nebraska and my mom's dog, cornfields of Iowa, and she just smiles. I'm pretty sure she had no idea what I was talking about. She's on the train for 3 days, and she's been knitting for 3 days. And before she gets up, camera me so these guys can see this. Before she gets up, she holds up these 2 socks, and she says to me, "Russia cold, you need." Now, does that ever make the news? No, it never makes the news. And then my companion, and in the same area, I called him Mr. Happy. His name was Sasha. I never saw him smile in 5 days. In 5 days, I never saw him smile. And he's like pulling this food out at the beginning. I thought, all right, I'm going to pull some food out and put some food on the table, be a good guy. And he says, no. I'm like, oh, what did I do? What I didn't quite understand was he was insisting on feeding me for 3 days. He just kept pulling food out, and chicken and tomatoes and eggs. And I ate it because I didn't want to make that guy mad, right? Right? So I just ate what he showed, and I'm fine. Now, I'm fine, mostly, right? But one night, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. It is pitch dark. And in there, they still have the rails where that break, so you hear the going, and it's pitch dark. And I kind of crack open an eyeball just a little bit, and who do I see standing over me is Sasha. I'm thinking, oh, this is interesting. Let's see where this goes, right? What I didn't realize that in the middle of the night, my blanket had fallen off. And what Sasha did, he picked up that blanket and he covered me back over. Once again, a reminder, we can never judge a book by the what? By the cover. You can never judge a book by the cover. And that taught me another lesson about humanity. And that was the lesson of kindness. Where does kindness show up in our journey, ICA? Because did he have to do that? No. Did that old woman, babushka I called her, did babushka, you know what babushka means? Grandma in Russian. Did babushka have to give me those, socks? No. But the world's filled with amazing people like that along the way that never get a chance to make headlines at CNN. Where does kindness show up in our life now, ICA? Where can it show up just a little more? I have a bonus wonder for you, because we like bonuses. Bonus wonder, number 8. The Amazon rainforest. I've been spending a lot of time there in the last decade. It has 10% of all the living species of the world, and it contributes to the world's oxygen. And I don't know about y'all, but I kind of like a little oxygen in the air that I breathe. It kind of comes in handy from time to time, right? So can we chop it down? No, we can't. We have to take care of it. It's a precious resource. Now, the first time I went in there, I really didn't think I'd go back again. And I met these amazing people called the Achwar. And I said goodbye to the elders of the village. And that kid in the plaid pants on my left, you see him up front? He comes running up to me. He runs up to me and he stops and he sticks out his hand, he smiles at me and he goes, Yacht Zero. And I turned to the guide. Her name is Christina, who's now my wife, back here. Yay! I'll give her a big round of applause. She followed me all the way back from the Amazon rainforest. She is brave, into Nebraska, all right? He goes, Yacht Zero. And I turn to Christina, I go, what did he just say? And she goes, well, this makes me tear up a little bit. He goes, he just called you his brother. Which is one of the great honors in a place where it's not about the accumulation of stuff, but it's how we treat each other with what? Kindness and dignity and respect. So it taught me a very important lesson that I want to share with you today, and that is the lesson of, as I go in the rainforest, when I go back there, I'm going to play one more video here. As I go in the rainforest, they teach me about the rainforest, because who knows the rainforest better than the people who've lived there their whole life, right? So they take my little hike. So I have a special hike video for you. Can you put me back on? There we go. Thank you. This is what it's like to go hiking with them. I have no idea what he says. He looks cross-eyed into the video. There's Leonardo. That's his name. He was explaining to me how they use those plants to make the roofs on their houses. And then they try to teach me how to whistle.
Wow.
What's on their feet? Nothing. And then they would hide in the forest to scare me.
That's funny. Woo. Ants. Woo. Cuidado. Cuidado.
And he falls in the ants, but watch what he does with his hands. He shakes them off. Because he doesn't let that trap him in the box. Because having fun is important.
Bien.
There he is. He's back.
Yeah. Tigers, monos, and oh my. Gracias. Sí. Vamos. Siesta. ¿Sí?
You know siesta, don't you?
¿Qué?
Yeah.
Máquete. Amigos. Harum. Arum.
Arum means see you
Arum.
tomorrow or later.
Arum. 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 Okay. Hasta luego. Okay.
Hasta luego. Hasta luego, amigo. Hasta mañana.
So they taught me a lesson, ICA, the one that we are even, that brings us here today, and that's called community. This knowing that we're in this together, and by working together, we can lift each other up into a better version of ourselves. So where else does community show up in our life, and where can we make those communities even stronger? So that way we weather the chaos and all those crazy things that are going to come our way. All right? Strong community is a medicine to help us weather the storm with what's going to come. The last few slides are this. We may wear different clothes, speak different languages, eat different foods, have different ideas about life. But here's what I've discovered, putting my life at the mercy of the world through 58 countries in 8 years of my life. We are more alike than we are different. Those two photos were taken 4 weeks apart. One was on an island in Sudan, and one was on the streets of Amsterdam. If you want to find what's wrong in the world, it's really easy, ICA. All you got to do is turn on the news or social media, and now it's filled with it 7/24. But if you want to find what's good and what's right and what's beautiful in the world, you can find that too. But here's the deal. You got to use your own eyes, you got to use your own ears, and use your own what? Use your own heart. I think we are better served finding what's right and what's beautiful and good in the world and lifting that up, because that's how we're going to leave the world better than we found it. So my question for you, to challenge you, is what are you looking for? Look for the good. Find those things. There's a voice for this. There's a need for this voice for humanity, especially in this negative narrative that's coming at us 7/24. The world will thank you for it. Your own heart will thank you for it. It's going to leave you in a better space. All those things that I just went through, generosity, gratitude, dignity, curiosity, humility, respect, kindness, community, those are all expressions of love. Those are all choices. We don't always have a choice of the chaos and the negative narrative that comes at us, but we always have a choice how we're going to respond and show up in the best version of ourselves. All right? I left some cards out there to help you, not just randomly try to get better. I left some cards on the round tables outside. They're a tool to continue to help you to stretch, to dream big, to live tall, to make the world better. And the last thing for you, I say, is this. I have always challenged myself. How do you make the world better no matter where you go? How do you make the birthplace of Jesus better? How do you make the birthplace of Buddha and Krishna and every sunset and sunrise that I've ever been blessed to see? How do you make that beautiful train ride better and those kids better in the Amazon? In the material sense, we always think of like, oh, I'm going to give them something. I'm talking about energetic. It's not about always money. It's about what are you going to do to leave this place better? So I'm going to end today with how I've done this as I've traveled all over the world, and I did it today as I left my hotel room. It goes like this. Blessings to all who've come before. Blessings to all who are here now. And blessings to all who come after. May you find some peace in your hearts and joy in your journeys. Thank you so much.